They've had 5 games on this road trip now. They're 2-3. They've led in all 5 games. They've led it fairly substantially deep into all 5 of these games.
Yeah.
And they've only been able to close the deal on 2 of them so far.
It's been frustrating yet now because of the Astros standing, where they sit in the standings. I look at it is more encouraging in some respects. All right, you're playing it down to the wire with really good baseball teams, with this rotating cast of characters where Caratini gets his first start at first base last night. He's played there 3 times this season, but that was his first start. That makes 9 players who have played first base for the Astros this year.
That feels like a lot.
You've got Shea Whitcomb coming up with the double that gave him the lead.
Yeah.
And you're doing all of this while also Jeremy Pena is playing the worst defensively that he's played in his entire career.
Yep.
Like, I don't know what the hell's going on with Jeremy Pena. I trust that somehow it's a flukish stretch that he'll get back on track. But the fact that they've been slugging it out with really good baseball teams and coin flip games, not overly distraught.
No.
I would love that. It would be awesome if they were stacking up a winning record on the road versus these really good baseball teams. But man, they're figuring out a way to get it done. It might be. I've seen a lot of people say that. A lot of Astros fans say that they are maybe more emotionally tied to this team and proud of them than any in the stretch since 2015. Just because of that, because you're getting these performances out of guys that you barely were aware of until just the last couple months.
Well, it's hard to find a team. I'd have to go back and look, but it's hard to find a team during this window of the last decade or so, 2015 we'll use as the benchmark, that's been hit with more adversity in season than this team. I mean, they at one time they had 7 starting pitchers on the injured list. You know what I mean?
And you kind of almost forget, because it's been so long now, that, Kyle Tucker's not out there.
Right.
Jordan's had issues in the last week. Altuve's needing rests. You know, it's one after the other of hits there where you could be saying, here we go again. And yet credit Joe Espada for keeping it all together and figuring out a way to just be competitive right this moment.
Yeah, be competitive. And then, by the way, let's not forget, they were 10 games back in the middle of June, and they're leading by 3.5 games. So it's not. Yeah. This is not a team, Seth. We're not sitting here at least not yet, but in a muck of 5 teams battling for the last wild card spot. They've managed to put themselves back in a position where they control the division. Like it really is remarkable. And my feeling on the Baltimore series and the game last night, and I think the game tonight is going to be this way. Verlander and Nola tonight should be.
Yeah.
You know, Verlander. I mean, I don't expect Verlander to go 7 innings or anything like that because he's still coming back from the injury. But on paper, that's a matchup you put on the WrestleMania poster. You know what I mean? With the 2 guys staring each other in the face. Like, this is going to be fun tonight. My feeling on the last 5 games last night in the Baltimore series is like, this is what postseason baseball feels like. You know, These are 2 good teams. And in the Orioles series, they were the ones coming up with the big hits. You know, they had 13 runs in that series, and 10 of them were driven in on 3 swings. You know, when they needed a big hit late in the game, they got it. And the Astros were able to muck a split out of that whole thing, undermanned. And then last night, kind of the same thing. You're right. Like, Shea Whitcomb's the one getting the big hit for this team in a game that finished 3-2. Like, they're piecing it together. Yeah.
You know, Brian King comes up
appearance.
Here.
Yeah.
The other guy that I'll give credit to, I'll give him the July and August MVP for this team, Rob Manfred. Because honestly, thank God for the Ghost Runner. This team right now, but again, this goes back to Dana Brown and Joe Espada, the way they're managing the roster. All right, you're working with one less reliever right now than ideally you would because you've got a 6-man starting rotation. But without the Ghost Runner, man, the Astros could be just devastated and having to go some long, more than 10 innings in a lot of these extra innings games they've had.
Yeah.
So I know everybody's always heaping praise on Rob Manfred, but let's Let's hug a little bit more.
They were for a year. I thought the pitch clock people were like into. Like I don't know. I thought a lot of people liked kind of the speeding up of the game.
I think a lot of people did, but a lot of people were really against it. The speeding up of the game, I am like hook, line, and sinker into. The biggest question is, all right, the injuries to the pitchers, and like how long can they sustain this, and like all of that. How much is it affecting the pitchers? We'll see.
Yeah. And when you say thank God for the ghost runner, you're saying in spite of the fact the Astros lost last night, they didn't have to use four more guys to get to the 13th inning or something like that.
Plus, though, I do think, as much as I used to I used to kind of complain about the old hardliners that were always bemoaning the demise of small ball in baseball. There's been a lot more small ball on this team, and it does, man. In those critical situations, it gets fun when you got last night was a perfect example. If it had gone the Astros way, Schwarber hoofs it around and gets that, and it sucks in the moment. But for baseball, I think it's good. We've seen more bunts, we've seen more just gamesmanship and strategy in those 10th innings. That it's weird because one of the most gimmicky of the rule changes has also led back to some of the more old school decision making.
They have. I wish the Astros were a little better at it. I'll be honest. I like it selfishly just because the games are over it. Like last night, 8:40 extra inning game. It's done at 8:40. Like that's
anybody who's awake right now, I think probably appreciates it.
Yeah. This isn't me telling the 9:30 audience, "Oh, woe is me. I have to get up early." These are all. If you're listening, feel our pain, right?
Look, everybody listening and us talking right now are people who have to also contend with these AL West road games. So, there's a higher likelihood that on any given night on an AL West road game, you're kind of like, all right, you know what? Yeah, I can stick around for the end of this game.
Yeah.
So it's because it's over.
And then they lose in extra innings, and you're like, I stayed up till 11:30 for this.
My wife is going to get yelled at because I'm moody today for this.
Right. Here's Joe Espada, his thoughts on last night's game.
Yeah, I thought we played well. We were in the game there. We're one hit away from winning that game. But that's what happens. You play these type of teams, and everything is close. Every play matters. Every pitch matters. Every at bat, matters. So again, turn the page. Got another one tomorrow.
Yeah, it's playoff baseball, man. I mean, these are the types of teams you're going to be seeing in October. So that's kind of how I look at it. On the interwebs yesterday, Seth, because the Astros were playing their first game in Philly since Game 5 of the World Series back in 2022. They were there was a lot of reliving going on yesterday, and if you recall, Game 5 of the World Series in 2022, late in the game, I believe in the 8th inning, because Presley was in, featured this.
Fly ball right center field. McCormick on the move. He's at the track. He's at the wall. Makes the grab. Chas McCormick gone the 9th.
All right, so remember that was a Chas catch. That's the Chas never has to pay for a drink ever again play. He can be bad for the next however many years, and Chas McCormick will still be loved. Now, Chas is putting that to the test this year because Chas has not been good this season. And this is what dawned on me yesterday. I was watching that play, Seth. I'm like, damn, man, Chas was a player back then, man. Like, he was an integral part of this team. He had secured that starting center field spot. That's one of the biggest plays and most memorable plays, certainly in recent Astros history, back in 2022. And it what it made me think of? It made me think of Dameon Pierce.
Yes, exactly.
Because it made me think of Dameon. A lot of people have been comparing Dameon to Jose Abreu, and I hate doing that because Jose Abreu was bad at his job from the time he got here, and overpaid too, by the way, to be bad at his job. Yeah. So I don't want to put that evil on Dameon Pierce. I watched Chas make that catch again yesterday. I'm like, man, that guy was so good in 2022. I just wish he was good like that again because that is a memorable play. And I'm like, man, I feel like I just played Mad Libs. Who was I saying this about like 2 days ago? And it was Dameon Pierce. Yeah. Dameon Pierce was great in 2022, like Chas, underpaid in 2022, like Chas, and making memorable plays in 2022, like that play where he trucked Evan Jags probably the same week as the World Series. You know what I mean? It was like 6 games into the season or whatever it was. He probably did it like the same day Chas made that catch. That's who Dameon Pierce is. He's Chaz. He's not Abreu. Stop it with the Abreu.
And it's, there were people that were I would go on with the afternoon show, and they couldn't believe that I was pulling for Myers in the competition of McCormick versus Myers, because what am I, an idiot? So it is. I guess the biggest difference, I don't want to get overly technical here, the biggest difference between the Texans and the Astros situations there is that the Texans did not win a World Series in 2022.
That's
so
true.
You have that added element to it that with Chaz, it was, man, he came up big in a big moment.
Yeah.
You felt like, oh, he's got that it factor or what have you.
Yep. I just, man, like yesterday, I'm watching that catch. I'm like, I wish this guy were as good as he was in 2022. I'm like, I just said that like 2 days ago. Who did I say that about? DP, man.